and welcome to another edition of the Bullheaded Podcast. I'm your host, per usual, Sean Tyson, here with Zoo and Peebush. How you guys doing?
Doing well, man. Bears keep losing. It's actually a beautiful thing, even though they're playing relatively well on offense. I like to say it every week, but I just hope Justin Fields, man, hope he's not too bad. But might be time of the year to just shut him down, close out the season, get a good draft pick, and let him get healthy for next year because he's taking a beating this year with no calls. No calls, man. Not getting any calls.
Nah, stop him, man. He got to play for my fantasy team right now, man. I have a lot of leagues this year. A lot of my leagues are on life support right now. The one that's doing the best is the one with Justin Fields. So you got to take me home this year. Take me
That's
home,
fair.
Justin Fields.
Couple more weeks, maybe.
But dislocated shoulder, pop it back in. Let's go. Let's keep it going.
All right.
Let's keep it going, man. This guy's young, man. Young guys heal faster. He ain't old, man. He ain't old.
Yeah, he's got to get those reps in, man. Like you say, he's proven that he's going to be a staple for the Chicago offense, but I would like to see him get more rhythm with other receivers and things like that. So, and, selfishly, I still got Mooney, so I would like to see him get more passes towards Mooney in my flex. That would be really nice for me going down the stretch, considering I'm in that awful time by big money league. So that'll be determined. But wanted to focus on two guys in particular out in the NFC. This year, the NFC, for maybe the first 8, 9, 10 weeks, everybody was talking about the Eagles and things like that, which is for good reason because they were undefeated. But as we've seen over the last couple of weeks, they've kind of faltered. Even though they won last week, they kind of, have looked like a team that could be vulnerable. So, watching last night, seeing Jimmy G just kind of shred the Arizona Cardinals. And I do understand it's the Cardinals and people are not looking at them as being contenders, but it still is impressive considering it's a division opponent. And, Jimmy G has always caught a lot of criticism. So we kind of already seen how Jimmy G has been over the years. He's kind of been in that middle of the road quarterback conversation, but Geno has been a revelation this year. So I wanted to ask the guys, going into the back end of the season and maybe possibly the playoffs, who would you trust more? Would it be Jimmy G or Geno Smith? And P-Bush, I'm going to start with you.
This is tough, man, because I think if you put Geno on the 49ers, man, this year, just taking this year alone, I think they'd be a better team. So it's hard to approach this because I think they're very similar quarterbacks. I think Geno's a bit more mobile than Jimmy is, and I think that is kind of the deciding factor. He's got like over 200 rushing yards this year, can really scramble when he needs to, can make throws on the run. He's made some hell of throws in, just outside the red zone or in the red zone, on the move to DK, to Tyler Lockett, Noah Fant. And I think we've all been really impressed just by his play after really kind of being not really the guy for the first 8, 9 years of his career. So, individually, I'm looking at him. I mean, he's thrown 73% completion this year. That's pretty ridiculous. He's leading the league, 17 touchdowns, only 4 picks, pretty much guaranteed to give you 250, 275, and 2 touchdowns a game. Neither of these guys are really like fantasy studs. They're not going to carry your fantasy team, but they're good. They're pretty nice to plug in and play if you need them. I know Geno has saved a couple people this year with all the, I guess you'd say inconsistent quarterback play from some guys that we thought would be better, like the Derek Carrs, the Russell Wilsons this year. You might have had to plug a Geno Smith type of guy in there. But if you're looking for experience, man, and you're looking at which guy do you end up trusting with the team that he has around him, I think I got to pick Jimmy G, man. I mean, he just has the better weaponry, which only helps him, especially adding Christian McCaffrey. I mean, Eli Mitchell didn't really get any touches in the first half of that game last night against the Cardinals. We see him come in and he just pops in a cool 50 yards rushing. Obviously, once again, like Sean said, not the greatest defense out there in Arizona, but look, he's got so many different options that he can rely on. Brandon Ayuk has been pretty beast. He looks for him in the red zone now too. Obviously, Kittle coming back healthy, I think really helped this team. And he's been at the level that we saw before COVID. I think that's what everyone was expecting to see, was that kind of 2019, that 2020 Super Bowl right before COVID happened, and seeing that level of Kittle's play. And it's only helping Jimmy. So, I mean, they're very similar statistically. I know Jimmy G's like, I think, 10-2 when he doesn't throw a passing touchdown. So, I mean, he's not, they just don't ask him to do too much. And I think the Seahawks are asking Geno to do more when they would be entering into the playoff situation. So I think the experience level and just the cast that he has around him, I'm going to pick Jimmy G. But at the same time, I do think Geno individually is having a better season than Jimmy by far this year. It's just that I don't know if you can really trust him to put the entire team on his back because their defense is nowhere near as elite as San Francisco's. And even though they do have a good young running back, I just think the 49ers are going to go further with the ability to rely on a game managing quarterback like Jimmy is. So it's kind of weird to say. It's a bit of a paradox, but I just think I trust Jimmy G to not make as many mistakes.
Oh, yeah, for me, man, that's not even a question, man. Jimmy G all day, man.
Really?
Jimmy G. Oh, I'm telling you, this Niners team, man, beginning
so
of the
good.
year, if you don't remember, I had them going to the Super Bowl, man, and winning
Yeah, I
it
do.
all. And not going to lie,
It looks good right now.
Yeah, the injury to the second-year quarterback, man, it's
Trey
a little
Lance, yeah.
Oh, man, it's a blessing. It's a blessing. Because this team doesn't need elite production at the quarterback position. As you can see, man, their skill position right now, finally they're healthy. You got George Kittle, who looks completely healthy, and this dude is an animal. Like, this dude got me a little nervous last night, man. I was in a league, man. I was up 30. George Kittle dropped a good 22. So it got me a little sweating out of that after he got that second tutty. But the dude looks completely healthy, man, trucking people over. Great pass blocker, man. This guy's a complete tight end. Like, he's an elite tight end, and when he's healthy, he's in that tier up there with Travis Kelce and those boys. So, George Kittle. And then you got Deebo Samuel, Swiss Army knife, man. The crazy part is they got CMC, so they got two Swiss Army knives. Like, last night, Christian McCaffrey led the team with receiving, and Deebo led in rushing. So, like, they can just, like, switch them whatever they want because both of them are elite at both things. Like, these guys, that the number of weapons these guys have is unbelievable. So you acquired CMC and you got Elijah Mitchell as a second running back. This is a guy that's bringing it in because they don't want to overwork CMC in the regular season. Obviously, they want to keep him fresh for the playoffs. So that's why Elijah Mitchell comes in and does the work. And obviously, they're blowing the team out. So and then they brought in some Mason guy. So like Jesus Christ, like my goodness, they're trying to keep their backs fresh for the playoffs because right now that dual threat of Elijah Mitchell, the more of a bruiser type of guy, versus CMC, the more versatile pass catching guy, man, it's a nice combination along with the Deebo Samuel. So they got like three backs right now that they're utilizing. And obviously, you're talking about Brandon Ayuk, man. This guy's having a career year with a number of touchdowns. This guy's producing. Like, this guy has been a red zone machine today. He's discussed, man. So Jimmy G, with that coaching staff and the weapons, man, no-brainer in the NFC, man. It's a no-brainer.
Yep.
Seattle, man, cute story. Cinderella. Ain't going to happen, man. There's going to be a pumpkin at the end, man, because the Cinderella ain't going to have no happy ending. The 49ers are the real deal. Those are real, legit contenders. While Seattle is just a cute story that you're going to forget next year because they might not even make the playoffs, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, in the NFC, they might.
It's a cute story, man. It's a cute story. But 49ers, that's a contender. I watched that team play offensively, defensively. It's a complete team. They felt heartbreak, man. Most of the core is there. They added some weapons, man, going all-in players, trading picks for must-win guys like CMC. I love what they're doing right now, and they look absolutely terrific on offense and defense. So Jimmy G set up for success, man. Just has all the weapons.
I think that just sums up that it's almost like we're not really looking at the individual quarterbacks, but these are guys
Jimmy G's just average, man. He's just average.
Yeah, they need the guys around them to be playing, exceptionally in order to make them look way above average. And I think that's the difference. Is like neither one of these guys is like a Super Bowl carrying kind of guy. Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, that kind of a player. But we're looking at the teams overall. They're obviously both, they're tied at the division right now. I think it could end up being a pretty close race too. I mean, obviously the Rams and Cardinals have kind of faltered, which is crazy to say, especially on the Rams side. But I do think Seattle can fight for a playoff spot. Who knows what, the Giants will end up faltering a little bit. We'll see. But yeah, I think it's mainly around the 49ers are just that freaking good at every single level of play, every single level.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I don't even look at wins, man. Like they're 6-4, so that sounds like a pretty mediocre team. But I like the point differential plus 63, man. They're only behind the Dallas Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles, and those teams,
which makes sense
on paper. In the win-loss, man, those teams been elite, so they're up there with those teams, regardless of win-loss right now. So, man,
unlike the Vikings.
That was disgusting. That's a burn the tape game. You don't even try to go back and look at what you did wrong. You just burn the tape.
Everything.
Dallas completely. They took the Vikings. So that it's kind of a lot of Vikings fans who have been on throughout the social media and of Twitter, Instagram. They've all been kind of vocal on a lot of the posts of whether it's the NFL or anything that's dealing with the NFL, and been talking about getting respect. And it almost feels like they were due for that type of game because the amount of close games they played and they squeaked by. I will say the Bills game gained a lot of respect because they did win that game. Yeah. So I do give them props for that. But you kind of just felt like that game was due for them because they had so many close games, and it just felt like they were teetering in that we needed to get blowout. Maybe that maybe reset some expectations and gets them on a better track. But I agree with Jimmy G being the quarterback that I would take going down the stretch into the playoffs. But it is kind of, you guys' point about talking about how, the team is what makes Jimmy G that much better. It just makes me go back to the offseason when they was like, I guess, quote unquote, being traded or being shopped around. It's like, think about the teams right now that their particular quarterback situation, if they had Jimmy G, they would be better. The one team that honestly comes to mind is the Jets. If they had Jimmy G, they would be a contender. Yeah. They would be a contender. Raiders. They got the receiver talent. They have decent backs. Like you say, Breece Hall did get hurt, but they got decent backs, and they got a really good defense. I think they would be a prime Jimmy G spot. Mm-hmm. Now, I guess you could say during the offseason, he wasn't rumored there, so it's kind of hard to envision him being in that situation. But just thinking about how things have played out this year, I feel like that would have been a prime spot. I also think, like, not for nothing, I don't know. Atlanta's funny because I think he may have gotten more out of Kyle Pitts, maybe.
Oh, dude. Atlanta's weapons, when you watch their talent,
they're not
elite weapons.
Yeah.
Like Drake London. Like, I was watching that touchdown pass that Mariota threw to him in the end zone. He was open a long time, and it took a while for Mariota to process the data to see Drake London, because Drake London was wide open, but then he kept running, and then he finally threw it to him. Like, he has like a delay in his head. He's a little slow on that side. So if you have a Jimmy G who's a smart quarterback, like, absolutely. Atlanta's weapons, like Kyle Pitts, on IR now. That sucks for him. But those weapons in Atlanta, man, they're legitimately elite weapons, man. Cordero Patterson is the RB. Like, they got some really nice weapons on that roster. Like,
so I feel like that would have – I just feel like that would have been a good spot. Like, there's some teams I feel like now, and I know hindsight's 20/20, but I think if you just would have got Jimmy G and put him as a placeholder or whatever, I think he might have actually played better than a placeholder, and it would have maybe allowed you to build your team like how San Francisco has. Like, that's what Jimmy G allows you to do. Like, nobody's saying he's a top 10 quarterback. Nobody's saying he's a top 5 quarterback, but he is a quarterback that if you build the team around him, specifically to his talents, he will get you to the Super Bowl, or he'll get you for a deep playoff run. Yep. And that says a lot. Now, the interesting thing with Geno is it kind of does feel like this is just one of those, like, historical years for the Seahawks and for Geno. And it almost makes you feel like what he's doing is just not, like, replicable. Like, he can't do this again. Yep. So next year will definitely be interesting in just the time frame of, okay, does Seattle need to, do the same thing they're doing with Jimmy G and just keep building around him? Like, they already got a linchpin with Kenneth Walker. They already got 2 stud receivers. It's like, do you maybe get somehow? I mean, I like Noah Fant. He's a good tight end. I think he maybe has potential. He might just need to play more with Geno to become an elite, because he was a really good tight end in Denver. So maybe they just need to build more around him, but maybe just keep building depth along that offensive line, building depth, because, Seattle, quiet as kept, they drafted really well. Like, they got a lot. They got a couple good defenders, rookie defenders. They got an elite left tackle they drafted in the first round. They drafted really well. So, them showing that they can draft, maybe they just need to keep doing that with Geno and have the same philosophy. So, I know the question was, who would you trust in a deep playoff run this year? I definitely would say Jimmy G, but it would not shock me if Geno had played well enough to where they can make noise in the playoffs too. I just think Jimmy G's done it more. He's done it more. Like you say, we all forget he went to the playoffs or went to the Super Bowl. And last year he, went into Aaron Rodgers, I guess you could say Castle Palace, whatever, and beat him. So, and they fought tooth and nail with the Rams. I get it. I feel like they own the Rams, and that year was just destined for the Rams to win. But I don't know, man. Jimmy G, when he came from New England, I think a lot of people maybe expected him to be like closer to, because he was with Tom Brady and the whole system. They kind of, what I think it is? It's kind of like how Josh McDaniels gets that, like that. I coached with Belichick, so even though I didn't do well at Denver, I get to get another chance with Oakland. It's just I have that Patriot glow, and I think that's what Jimmy G had. And I think people expect him to be like this top 5 guy. But if you just pull back the layers and just fairly judge Jimmy G, he's a good quarterback. He's just not elite. But if you think about the league, there's only a few guys that are elite. You got to build around a lot of these other guys, man. You got to. You can't just expect everybody can't be Josh Allen, Lamar, Patrick. That's rare. So if you build, like you say, 49ers have shown they're a good infrastructure, and Jimmy G, they're starting to become a very interesting dark horse. I would not want to play them because they're physical, running the ball. They got a quarterback that can maybe limit mistakes. That's not going to be a fun matchup. I don't know who they're matched up currently, and this is all going to change, but that's not going to be a fun matchup if you got to play 49ers. No. If I'm Dallas, I'm praying to God I don't get them in whatever round because I feel like that'll be another first round or whatever exit they get. That will be the exit for the 49ers. Or not 49ers, but the Cowboys. Eagles, I wouldn't want to see them. Minnesota. I don't think there's a team in the NFC that's saying, yeah, I want to play them.
Some of the exits in the NFC this side are going to be very interesting. Tom Brady could pull a very easy first round. And then, facing the Giants and then having to face, maybe a Vikings team, right? And Tom Brady could just end up in the Super Bowl going 9-8. And the NFC is so top heavy right now.
That would be it. Wouldn't that be rich? Tom Brady literally goes 9-8 and goes to the Super Bowl. Yeah, you definitely probably. I don't know Atlanta because Atlanta lost the game in Tampa, but they kind of got jobbed on that game because Tom Brady got a very favorable, I think, roughing the passer call or whatever that kind of extended that drive to where they were able to win that game. So Atlanta might have something to say about the division, but I take it back. I think the Giants will maybe be the only team just because of their physicality with running. I think Daniel Jones is the walk. I don't say this disrespectfully, but I feel like he's a notch below. He's of Jimmy G, but in terms of the game manager. But they have that physicality with Saquon, and now they did lose Wan'Dale Robinson, so that might be tough.
Massive loss.
That might be an opening for your boy Odell now that Wan'Dale was hurt. And if you're looking at Darius Slayton being your number one receiver, that's tough. So who knows? That might be an opening for that Odell is looking for. Because I was high on Dallas, but now that Wan'Dale injury happened, that might be the avenue for him to get in there and play. But I think the Giants, just of how their team is, because they're heavy defense, they run the ball a lot, and they got kind of a game manager at their quarterback, even though Jimmy G is a step above a game manager. So that could be one team that I think that could match them physically. But yeah, you guys are right. Jimmy G, man, he gets disrespected a lot, but he wins, and he had, like you say, last night. If you just came from outer space and watched last night, you would think Jimmy G is a top 5 quarterback. Yeah. Just if he played last night. But then you'll probably watch next week and see he'll throw for he'll have those stat lines where it's 1 touchdown, 201 and 17 of 17 of 30. It's what the fuck? You're thinking what is that? But it's they won still somehow, but it's because their defense is good and they know how to run the ball. So I don't know, that's just something interesting to see. Like you say, the NFC, at the beginning we kind of saw who's going to emerge out of this side of the division conference, but they got some teams now that I think physicality and how certain quarterbacks are playing, it could be a toss-up. So we're going to be looking into that. But introducing this second segment, we're going to be doing a gambling aspect of the game of, I guess you say, the NFL game. It's something we probably should have brought earlier to the table, but we're still trying to work things out with the podcast. So we're going to try every week to bring you different aspects of gambling, and this week we're just going to go with spreads and things like that. So we're going to let Zoo, I guess, lead us off and give us some games that he's looking at, and what his thoughts are on some of the spreads and things like that.
That's the tip, Sue.
Oh yeah, for me, man, I'm looking at that game of the Vikings, man. The Vikings versus the Patriots, man. I'm looking at that 2.5 point spread, man. I'm picking the Vikings. I'm picking the Vikings because absolutely, because they got embarrassed against the Dallas Cowboys. That game wasn't even fun, man. They had to. Dude, the Fox had to change the game, man, to another game because how bad that game was. It was the third quarter or something. The game was over. They put up the white flag. So that embarrassment of a game. They're at home, 2.5 point spread. So you only got to win by a field goal. Only by a field goal. And when the Vikings win, every game they've won this year, they bite one over a field goal or more. And every single game that the Patriots have played this year, they lost by more than a field goal. So I'm looking at that. I'm looking at data right now. I'm I like that. I like that data correlating right there. Vikings often an embarrassment. Kirk Cousins, man. Versus Mac Jones. Like, I might not be a Kirk Cousins believer, but he's an average quarterback, and Mac Jones is definitely below average.
Mhm.
That's true.
Like Mac Jones is just not that good of a football player. Like, the Patriots defense is legit, but I feel
That's
like
what I was gonna say.
yeah, it's a
You're
legit
not nervous
defense.
about that?
Yeah, I am a little nervous about that defense, man. But you know what they got to do? Give it to my boy Dalvin Cook. Run the ball, control time of possession, man, and then let Justin Jeff do his thing. Little play action, Justin Jeff. Nobody can cover Justin Jeff. This dude's unbelievable. Get your best playmaker more touches, man. Kirk Cousins, don't have to do too much, man. Just get it to your playmakers and let that yak do the work for you instead of you trying to make plays. And stop throwing at TJ Hawkinson so much because that dude freaking drops the ball a lot, man. Just get it to Justin Jeff, Adam Thielen, man. Run the football with Dalvin Cook. The dude had 71 yards, 7 yards to carry, but this last game against the Cowboys was just so embarrassing that they couldn't run the ball anymore. So that's what you got to do. Run the ball effectively. You have one of the best left tackles in the game. Utilize them. Kirk Cousins, man, don't got to go crazy, man. I don't need 300 yards from you. I don't need 3 touchdowns from you, man. Be a game manager against this Patriots team and show this league that you guys could bounce back from adversity right now. Because you guys are celebrating with the chains and stuff, rolling high, man. Okay, you guys got humbled. Really hard. You got humbled so hard because people are like, oh, they're at home. Why is Vegas giving the Dallas Cowboys so much credit? Oh, Vegas knew, and they didn't believe in the Vikings at all. So this is your opportunity right now. 2.5 point spread. Give me a field goal. I'm riding with the Vikings this week, man. A no-brainer in my mind. No-brainer. I love this pick right now. I love this pick so much. I want to make the bet right after this podcast, man.
Wow. All right. Well, our first betting segment, and I think we disagree here. Now, that's not my number one bet that I would be placing, and I don't think I'm as confident in the Patriots as you are in the Vikings. But I think it's also, once again, a bit of a trap game for the Vikings, man. I know they're coming off a big loss, but this is prime time night. Kirk Cousins, man. We know how that goes with Kirk, right? We know that. You want to talk about data and a track record? Woo! I don't know his exact losses. I know it's way too many in primetime games, but I'm not saying that's the only reason. I think, a lot of it has to do with the Vikings giving up a lot to Tony Pollard this week. I thought that was big. I think that Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris actually started to get back into the offense a bit this week on the Patriots sideline. I think that could be something to look out for the Vikings on that side. I do think 2.5 is a bit tough. It's pretty much a pick'em game, Zoo. They're not given the home field advantage, I guess you could say, with the -3.
Yep.
I am looking at the Patriots as kind of a value pick there. I wouldn't say that it's an absolute lock of a bet to take them on that side, but I just think that Kirk Cousins could get. You saw the pressure that the Cowboys were getting on Kirk Cousins this week, and Matthew Judon is one of the best pass rushers in the game.
I think he leads the league in sacks.
I think he is. He's easily over probably at least 11 sacks this year already. And I just think that could end up putting pressure. Not saying that this would end up being a shootout. If the Patriots were to win, this would obviously be a pretty low-scoring game, which we've seen the Vikings struggle with a little bit here and there. But then again, they tore up the Bills' defense, which is considered to be one of the best this year.
Elite.
Right? But at the same time, that was a lot on Justin Jefferson, and you saw what they did to Justin Jeff when they put all the focus on him. So Belichick is going to take Justin Jefferson out of the game. It's going to be all on Dalvin Cook.
Bold statement, man.
No, I'm not saying he will, but that's his game plan. You have to take Justin Jefferson out of the game if you want to beat this Vikings team, because that's the only way they lose, really. Mm-hmm. And, so that's what I'm looking at, Zoo. I agree with you. That was on my top 3. But I'm also looking at another kind of trap game. I'm looking at this Titans-Bengals game, man. You want to talk about a team that their offense, the Bengals offense, man, has been pretty damn ridiculous, even without Jamar Chase. Tyler Boyd, just absolute dud of a game this past week, really screwed me over. But I'm looking at this Titans team, man, and I think a lot of people just overlook this Titans team because they're not very flashy. It's really Derrick Henry and the defense. That's their entire existence. I did like the Treylon Burks kind of re-entry back into the system. He had a really nice game last week in their win over the Packers. And then, once again, Zoo, I think this is a 2.5 point spread. Titans, I think I would take Titans money line here. I think this could be a good value play because I do think a lot of people are going to be putting their money on the Bengals. I just think that looking at this team, I think this Titans defense could cause a lot of havoc, especially on T. Higgins, once again, he's the guy that they're going to put their focus on. And Mike Vrabel loves.
Jamar Chase might come back this
He
week.
might be playing this week.
Yep,
That's
he might be
incredible.
playing this week. Yep.
That'd be quick turnaround. So that does put a little hindrance on my thoughts on that one. Hadn't read that report, but at the same time, I do think this Titans team is very annoying to play against, and Derrick Henry can just completely blow up. And if he has a good game, which he's not really had a bad game.
Yeah,
this year,
he doesn't really have bad games this year.
He doesn't have bad games, and they eat up clock. That's the other thing. They eat up so much clock, and they force you to make major plays on the offensive side if you want to win the game. I don't know, man. That's one I'm definitely looking at as well, plus 2.5. That one, and then also this Raiders Seahawks. I think the disrespect of Seahawks minus 3.5 only. I think that's self-explanatory. I just don't believe in the Raiders at all. I think if you're looking for a pretty generous spread on the minus side, I got to go with the Seattle Seahawks, man. I think they're going to take it to the Raiders again this week, man.
Yeah, the Raiders and the Denver Broncos, man. A lot of sad franchises playing, and one of those teams had to win. So,
they didn't tell me anything. Yeah,
exactly.
I know Devontae had to catch it then, whatever. I don't think Derek Carr's a great quarterback, and they're going to only go as Like maybe it's just because they're coming off the bye. They may think they're sluggish. Because I know Baltimore looked really bad coming off the bye against Carolina, which that game was so hard to watch.
Oh, bad.
I don't know what was going on in that game. That's what makes me so hesitant about Baltimore. Is like you just wish they would not blow that team out, but it's just like control that game to where you would be more confident to pick them out of the AFC. But so. That's going to be part of our gambling aspect. I will be adding my picks in there too, but I kind of just want to do a test run with the guys and let them get their thoughts off on what they think will be some of the outcomes in the games this weekend. So make sure you guys tune in to the podcast on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple. As always, putting up content daily with bullheaded_pod. Also on TikTok, bullheaded864. Same thing with Twitter. Sometimes I put some tweets out there. It's just a little bit more different because the traffic is not as high. So make sure you guys are tuned into all those social media platforms. And for me, Zoo, and P. Bush, we are out.